Hi friends, welcome to OFA Studies YouTube channel. This is part 6 in PySpark real-time scenarios playlist. This is very important video. In this video, we will discuss about how to write a data frame data into single file, that too with a specific name. So for example, if you have seen my PySpark playlist, I already discussed how to write a data frame into CSV file, Parquet file and all, right. And I said that whenever you write them, then it will actually create a folder, and inside the folder it will create some part files. Okay, so if you don't know, then please watch my PySpark playlist starting few videos to understand it. So whenever you write data frame data into CSV or Parquet files, it will actually create one folder inside which, with some random name, it will create some part files which will contain your data. Okay, and also not only part files, it will create some hidden files and some file called success file. So there are a couple of files it will create. We will see that in reality now also in few minutes. So now many times what we will be feeling is we don't want to do that, right? So maybe if we have taken employee data as a data frame, then we want to write it as a like employee.emp.csv file. So we want to control the name of the file also, and we want to have the data into a single files also. So that kind of scenarios we will face many times, right? So how to achieve that, that's what we are going to discuss in this video. And a quick recap, so if you don't know how actually Spark or PySpark will work, so whenever you supply some data, let's say some 5 to 6 rows, then PySpark what it will do, it will create multiple partitions. So each partition is like one mission, you imagine like that. And two rows will be here, two rows will be here, and two rows will be here. So totally one, two, three nodes. So like that it will partition the data onto multiple nodes, and then it will process it. Because of this fact only, PySpark is very quick when you are handling with large data sets. When you are processing huge data, it will process very fastly. The reason is the entire huge data will be splitted across multiple nodes as separate parts, and then the processing will happen, and finally the output will be created into folder as a separate part files. So if it splitted the data into 10 parts, then 10 parts file will be created. If it splitted the data into 3 parts, then 3 parts part files will be created. So this we know already from the PySpark playlist, so please watch it. So in this video I don't want that, I want to create as a single file, and that single file also should have the specific name. So let me explain you this if you are not getting with example what I mean. So let me repro the problem first. So whatever the problem I am saying, let's try to repro it first. So this is my Databricks workspace here, and here we have already created a cluster here. Okay, now let's try to create a new notebook. So let me name this notebook as save df as single file. So maybe this is my notebook name. Python is a language. This is cluster. So let me hit create button to create my notebook here. Notebook got created successfully. So let me close this pop-up, and then here let's try to create one data frame first. So let me create a variable called data, in which I will be having a tuples like maybe ID, then name, then maybe salary. Okay, so three column. So let's try to copy paste this like maybe 3 to 4 rows. Okay, and then second is 2 wafa, then salary maybe 3000, then third ID maybe RC, salary maybe 1000, and then fourth row maybe like Sarfraz, and salary maybe like 3000. Okay, so now let's try to create a schema variable which contains a schema for my data frame. So ID column, name column, then salary column we have. Then here Spark keyword will give you Spark session object, on top of which we have create data frame function, to which I can pass this data and schema to create a data frame. That data frame I am storing it into df variable, and finally I am using the df.show to display that data frame. And when I pressed shift enter, the cell command started executing. So once this command execution completes, you will actually see data frame also. You can see this is the data frame I have. So now let's assume I want to write this data as a CSV file. So if you have seen my previous videos, you know that from my PySpark playlist. So this is real-time scenarios playlist, right? So there is a PySpark playlist as well. So Dataframe dot we can use write instance, on top of which if I want to write as a CSV file, I can use it, and where to write. So let me do one thing. You can write it onto a separate storage as well. If you know my Databricks playlist, if you see it, you know how to create a mount point and how to write the data onto the mount point and everything. For this video, I will be writing it into the inbuilt storage of the Databricks workspace. Under this data menu, you will be having a Databricks file system. So here I want to write down. So under file store folder, maybe here I want to write it as like maybe persons one folder, something like that. Okay, so let's do that. So what I will be doing it here is, so let me copy that folder name first here under dbfs. Then let me copy this under file store. Under file store, let me go to my notebook, and here I have to give the path. So maybe abcd is the folder, or abcdmno. This is the folder under which I want to write the data. And in my data frame I have headers, so headers are available, so I am saying it as a true. So now let me hit shift enter to execute this code, and let's see what will happen. This will write this data frame data onto this location as multiple part files. I will show you that practically. So if I go to data folder, Databricks file system, and you can see there is abcd MNO folder, and if I go inside this folder, you can see there are so many files created. And not only these files, there are few part files as well. 1 2 3 4 5. That means what PySpark did, it taken the entire data as 5 different partitions, and it executed your transformations or whatever maybe it is. So that is the reason all the data will be come as a part files here. Along with these part files, there are few files will be generated here. Also there will be some hidden files also, which you cannot see like this. And whenever I hover on this part file, you can see the file extension from the tooltip. It is .csv file. You can see this is also .csv. All part files are .csv file, which will hold your data, but these files will not have any extension. So these files will not contain any data also, so they are for the Spark purpose. We no need to go in deep why they are available, but this is how it works. So now what I will be doing it here is, so here let me try to read the data frame. So let me try to use a spark.read csv file to make sure whether we got our data or not. Spark.read.csv, and then here I have to give the path, and also I have to mention headers are available. So let me use this here, and now this entire code will create a data frame. So let me use show function on top of it, and once I run this, it will actually read the csv files from that all the part files, and it will give the data back. And you can see here it is giving me the entire data correctly. So that means we are good, we are able to write the data as a csv file. But the thing is, it written as a, so it written as a actually multiple part files, right? So firstly what we have to do, we have to make sure it will write data as a single part file. So how to do that? For that, let me do one thing. Instead of writing into this abcd folder, this time I will write my data frame into a separate folder. So data frame dot write dot csv, and then let me copy same file store path. Under the file store, I will write it into some temporary location like this. So maybe persons temp. So this is the folder under which I want to write the data frame. Okay, then header equals to true. So if I execute this again, it will write into this folder as multiple partitions only. That means multiple part files. So what we have to do first, this data frame data we have to collect it as a single partition. So for that there are a couple of functions like repartition or collage. So if I use this collage, and if you mention like how many partitions you want, it will do that many partitions. So if I mention here one, that will it will partition entire data as one partition, and it will write it. So that means technically it will give you only one part file inside this folder. So let me hit shift enter and see whether that will happen or not. You can see our command is running here, command executed successful. So it should have written into persons temporary folder. So if I go to data, and if I go to dbfs this time, under file store, you can see persons temp folder, and inside which I have this time only one part file. All other files are other files. Okay, so that means the default files what Spark created. So half of our requirement is done. Now we are getting our data as a single part file. So now, but what I said, I want to write the data frame as a single file but with a specific file name. The file name should be specific. So I want my file name as maybe person.csv. So how to achieve that? So for that, technically what we'll be doing it, so I will be doing this actually. So I will, so let me show you that. So let me go to data menu and under dbfs. So what I will be doing it here is, so this file I will copy into some other permanent location where I want to store the file, and while I am writing this file name, I will rename it like according to my need. After that, I will delete this entire temporary folder along with these files. So I hope you got it right. So take this file name first and then copy this file name into permanent location. While copying, give a proper name, and then finally delete this person's temporary folder altogether. So let me show you how to do that. So if you have watched my Databricks Azure Databricks playlist, you know there is something called DB utils. So DB utils, we will be using it to get all the file names and to remove the file or to copy the file. So under DB utils fs.ls, so let me use help function here. So if you don't know, I will give you very quick idea. So if you see here, this help command will give you all the commands which are available under fs, that means file system. So there is a command called cp that will help you to copy a file or directory, and there is a command called ls that will give you all the content from a directory, that means all the file names. Similarly, there is rm that will actually help you to remove the directory. So what I will be doing it here this time is, first I will use fs.ls. ls means it will give you all the child item names from the path. So from this folder, take all the child item names, that means all the part files, hidden files and everything. So that everything, the entire list, I am storing it into file names variable. Then simply let's try to print that file names first. So understand this very closely what I am doing here. So let me hit shift enter to execute this code. Now you can see we got a list of file info objects. So from here to here, one object, from here to here, one object actually. Okay, and if I minimize this, and if you see here, again to from here to here another object. Okay, so like that all the objects it will give you back. Okay, so now if you see, every object will contain path and also it will contain something called name. Okay, so similarly there is a, see, if you see, this is our part file name, from here to here our part file name actually. So what we have to do, we have to take this path file, this path, this entire path we can take it, and then we can try to copy this file into our desired location with a specific file name. So for that, what I can do, since this is a list, I can loop through this list. We can loop through this list and then try to identify where file name contains this .csv at the last. Okay, even there is something called name property that will contain a file name. So where I see .csv, that is my file name. So what I will be doing it here is, let me remove this print. So since it is a list, I can use a for loop here. For each file name in file names, okay, what I can do, if, so this file name will point to every item from the list. So if file name dot, so one file name equals to one object. So and if you see, it has a path property and it has a name property. So name property will have the file name into it. So what I can do is, I can use a name property here. If file name dot name dot ends with dot csv, then that is our file name. So I will be creating a variable called name, and in which I will store this file name dot name. Okay, so this will get me my file name. So let me declare a name variable here with empty string here. And what I am doing, if file name dot name property, whatever the value it contains, if it ends with dot csv, then that is my file. So that file I am taking and storing it into this name variable. Okay, so now what I will be doing, I got my file name. So there is something called db utils dot fs dot copy command that will copy my file name. So first let me do one thing, let me print name variable here. So let me hit shift enter to execute this code. Now you can see I am able to access my file name correctly. So what I will be doing it here is, let me use dbutils dot file system dot copy cp command, and here I have to give the which file you want to copy. So I want to copy file from this path. This is a temporary location where we stored our file, right? Then what is the name of the file? Name of the file is here. So from this path I want to copy it into maybe under file store. So let me copy this. Maybe under file store I want to have like persons data, under which I want to have file name as person dot or persons dot csv. This is the file name I want to have. Now let me hit shift enter to execute this code, and let's see whether this persons dot csv file get created or not. So if I go to data menu, if I go to dbfs, and if I go to see, there is persons data folder, and inside which I have persons.csv file. So that means we are able to save the data frame data with a single file with a specific name. So first we stored it into a temporary location as a part file, then that part file name we identified, and that one we moved it as a permanent location with a specific name. So to make sure whether our entire data is copied or not, so what I can do here is I can use this spark dot read dot csv function to read the csv file, and let me copy. So this is the path under which my file is available, right? So this will give me that file, that persons.csv file. Then finally dot show, and let me hit shift enter to execute this command, and see, we are able to get it. So header equals to true, I have to mention to get these as header values. So what I can do here is I can mention here as header equals to true. So let me hit shift enter to execute this command now. See, now we can see our data frame exactly. That means all the entire data moved into single file along with a specific file name whatever we want to keep it. Okay, so once it is done, we have to remove this temporary file path actually. So for that, what we have to do, so we have to use dbutils dot file system dot, there is something called remove command. So here we have to give the path. So this entire path we want to remove, and we have to mention recurse true. That means recursively remove all the files and folders from that path. So once it is executed successfully, now if I go to data menu, I cannot see my temporary path also. That means it will be removed. See, there is no person's temp folder at all. So hope you got it right. So what we did is technically we actually tried to take this entire data frame and save it as a single part file using this colis one, which defines single partition. Then once that partition file created, we looped all the file names from that path and identify that .csv file name. And then once we identified the file name, we used the copy command to copy that file into permanent location with the name whatever we want. And then finally we removed that temporary location completely using this recurse equals to true property. So that's it in this video. I hope you got an idea how to save or write a data frame into single file with a specific name. Thank you for watching. Please subscribe to my channel and press the bell icon to get the notifications whenever I add videos. Thank you so much.